Retirement in Charleston was supposed to be peaceful, a slow, golden drift into evenings on the porch, sweet tea in hand, the air thick with honeysuckle. Instead, I found myself trapped in a house full of tension, the kind that made you forget how to breathe. My daughter, Lauren, had invited the whole family over to celebrate her husband, Brent, who just landed a job as regional director at some tech firm. That meant a fancy dinner at their new place in Willowbrook, the kind of neighborhood where even the squirrels look like they pay property tax. Lauren had spent all afternoon cooking prime rib, setting the table with linen napkins and wine glasses I'd bought them last Christmas. My grandkids, Riley and Max, were bouncing around in the living room, showing off their school projects and trying not to knock over the fancy vase on the mantel. Brent, though, was in rare form. He sat at the head of the table now, claiming that seat with a confidence that came from too many podcasts about alpha leadership and financial dominance. He raised his glass, Cabernet, of course, the expensive kind I'd brought as a gift, and smirked. "You know, Jack," he said, swirling the wine, "retirement must be easy. No pressure, no real expectations. Just drifting along." I set my fork down. I'd heard these jabs before, but tonight his voice was a little louder, his smile a little sharper, boosted by the new job and a glass or two too many. My daughter glanced at me, worry flickering in her eyes. "Dad had a great career," Lauren said, trying to steer things back to safe ground. "He built half the bridges in the county. That's something." Brent just shrugged. "Different world now. Things move fast, you have to keep up or get left behind. Right, Jack?" The conversation stalled. My granddaughter Riley piped up. "Grandpa fixed my bike last week. And he made me a treehouse." She was proud. Brent patted her head, chuckling. "That's nice, kiddo. But you'll learn, real men make things happen in the world. They don't just exist." I looked around the table, at Lauren, silent, at Max poking his potatoes, at Riley biting her lip. It felt like a trap, the kind you don't see coming until it's too late. Brent leaned forward, his voice low, like he was about to share a family secret. "Actually, now that I'm bringing in a real salary, I think it's time everyone around here started pulling their own weight." He glanced at Lauren. 15 years of help is a lot. Maybe it's time to stand on your own 2 feet. Lauren's face went pale. She knew as well as I did that their entire lifestyle, from the new kitchen to Riley's dance lessons, depended on my quiet support. Max, only 12, asked in a small voice. "Are we in trouble, Dad?" Brent kept going. "Kids, this is about earning, not taking. There are winners and there are, well, you know." He looked right at me, enjoying the power. "So, Jack, what's it like being a loser?" The word echoed. The air in the room seemed to freeze. For a moment, nobody moved. Lauren's hand shook. Riley looked like she might cry. But I'd had enough. I took a sip of water, slow and deliberate, then set my glass down and met Brent's eyes. "You want to know how it feels, Brent?" I said, voice steady. "How does it feel to know that from today, this loser won't be paying your bills anymore?" The color drained from his face. He tried to laugh it off, but his confidence was gone. Lauren gasped, Riley stared wide-eyed, and Max dropped his fork onto his plate with a clatter. I finished my dinner in silence while Brent sat there, exposed for the first time in years. Outside, the Charleston night pressed against the windows. I could hear a neighbor's dog barking, far away, as if reminding me there was still a world beyond that tense dining room. When I finished, I wiped my mouth, stood, and kissed my grandkids goodnight. "Thank you for dinner, Lauren. You did a wonderful job," I said gently, before grabbing my old jacket and walking out into the cool spring evening. My heart was pounding, but my steps felt lighter than they had in years. The drive back to my small place on the other side of Charleston was quiet. My hands gripped the steering wheel. But my mind was racing. For 15 years, I'd been the silent supporter, the one who bailed them out, tuition, car payments, insurance, even the kitchen remodel Lauren had always wanted. Brent had never thanked me, not really. At first, there were awkward handshakes and promises to pay me back, but those faded as quickly as his old work ethic. When Martha died, I made her a promise. I'd keep Lauren safe, do what it took so she never felt alone. At her funeral, Lauren had clung to me, terrified for her future. "Don't worry, honey. I've got you," I'd whispered. But I hadn't known how long that promise would stretch, or how easily it would be taken for granted. My house felt different when I walked inside that night. Smaller, quieter. The only sound was the click of the porch light when I flipped the switch. I hung my jacket and went straight to my study. 15 years of paperwork, receipts, checks, statements, all lined up in neat folders, color-coded by expense. Blue for mortgage, green for tuition, yellow for medical, red for emergencies. I sat at my desk and pulled open the first drawer. Each file was a reminder of a moment. The time Max broke his arm at baseball, Riley's braces, Lauren's panic when the hot water heater died in January. One by one, I started to add up the costs. Brent's new BMW, the one he always bragged about. That was me, paying off the lease when his contract work dried up. Riley's dance academy, $600 a month for 4 years. Max's private school tuition, $12,000 a year since kindergarten. The numbers climbed, steady and unforgiving. I grabbed my old calculator and started punching keys, each click a tiny spark of resentment I'd tried to ignore for too long. Mortgage, $2,500 a month, 12 months, 15 years. $450,000. Car payments, $350 a month for Lauren's SUV, 8 years. $33,600. Brent's BMW lease, $500 a month, 4 years. $24,000. Tuition, $12,000 a year, 8 years for Max, $96,000. Riley's dance, $600 a month, 4 years. $28,800. Medical bills, insurance, emergencies, gifts, repairs. The total was staggering. Nearly $800,000, more than the price of my house. My retirement fund was half what it could have been. My travel plans, postponed again and again. Even small things, a fishing trip with friends, a camera I'd always wanted, had been pushed aside for a family emergency. The realization stung. It wasn't just about the money, it was about respect. About gratitude that turned to expectation, about love that was mistaken for obligation. I thought about Brent's smirk at the dinner table, the way he twisted my help into something shameful. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through my contacts, and highlighted the numbers I'd need for the morning, banks, the insurance company, the academy. It was time to take my life back, even if it meant letting Lauren and Brent finally feel the consequences of their choices. Sunday morning, the sun poured through my kitchen window. The world looked the same, but I felt different. Stronger. I brewed a cup of coffee, sat down at the table, and watched the sparrows fight over crumbs on the back porch. I opened my notebook, made a list, and dialed the first number. "Hello, this is Jackie from First National. How can I help you? I'd like to cancel the automatic payment for the mortgage at 183 Willowbrook Lane." A pause. "Of course, Mr. Sullivan. May I ask why?" Family's grown up. Time for them to handle things themselves. Each call was like dropping a stone into a pond, the ripples spreading out, quiet but unstoppable. The dance academy, the auto lease, the insurance, all cancelled or redirected. By noon, my list had more checkmarks than it had in years. My hand shook, but not from fear. For the first time since Martha's funeral, I felt like myself again. At 12:15, my phone rang. Lauren's number flashed on the screen. "Dad, something's wrong with the bank. The mortgage payment bounced. I thought you..." "I'm not paying any more, Lauren. I told you last night. But Dad, Max's tuition, Riley's dance. I'm done, honey. You and Brent will have to figure it out. You're not kids anymore. She started to cry, and I felt the old ache in my chest. But I stayed firm. For her sake, as much as mine. By Monday morning, the news had spread through the family like a thunderclap. Lauren called twice before noon, her messages growing shorter and more panicked. When I didn't answer, Brent finally texted, "Jack, whatever point you're trying to make, just know you're hurting Lauren and the kids. You can't just walk away from your responsibilities." I stared at the message, feeling a mix of anger and heartbreak. Responsibility? For 15 years, my responsibility had paid for their dreams, while my own stayed folded up in a drawer. But there was no apology, no understanding, only accusation. I didn't answer. By the afternoon, Lauren drove over with the kids. Riley was still in her dance leotard, Max in his soccer uniform, faces pinched with confusion. Lauren's eyes were red. She didn't knock, she just let herself in, like she always did. "Dad, we need to talk." "Please," she said, voice trembling. I sat at the kitchen table, letting her speak first. The kids hovered behind her, not sure if they were in trouble or if this was all some misunderstanding. "Dad, we're already behind on the mortgage. Riley's dance school called. Max's tuition is overdue. What are we supposed to do?" She dropped a stack of unpaid bills onto the table. "Brent says you're being unreasonable. You can't just disappear like this." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the girl I used to push on the swings, now a mother at the edge of panic. "Honey, I didn't disappear. I just stopped carrying all the weight for you. You and Brent have jobs. You're smart people. You'll figure it out." I tried to keep my tone gentle, but there was steel underneath. Max piped up, "Are we poor now, Grandpa?" The question stabbed me, but I forced myself to smile. "No, buddy. You're not poor. You just have to live within what your mom and dad earn now. That's not the same as being poor. It's called being responsible." Lauren wiped her eyes. "Dad, I know we should have done more. But I was so scared after Mom died. You promise?" "I promise to help you get back on your feet. Not to carry you forever." The room went quiet. Riley buried her face in Lauren's shirt. Max played with the edge of a bill, tracing the numbers with his finger. "I'm still here for you. For my grandkids. But I'm not your bank, Lauren. Not anymore." She nodded, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. For the first time, she didn't argue. Brent, though, wasn't finished. That night, he showed up alone. He didn't knock either, just barged in, full of righteous fury. "You think this is fair, Jack? Leaving your family to twist in the wind?" I met his glare with my own. "Fair? Let's talk about fair, Brent. Is it fair that you've let me cover nearly $1 million in bills while you brag to your friends about your new job, your fancy car, your great life? Is it fair that you taught your kids to expect gifts, but not gratitude?" Brent's jaw tightened. "You're punishing Lauren and the kids for my mistakes." "I'm not punishing anyone. I'm letting you face reality. You think you're the man of the house? Prove it. Go pay your own mortgage, get Max to school, keep Riley dancing. But don't ask me to be ashamed for saying no." He paced the living room like a caged animal. "We'll find a way. You'll see. You'll come crawling back when you realize what you've done." I shook my head, tired beyond words. "No, Brent. I won't. The days of quiet sacrifice are over." He slammed the door on his way out. For the first time in years, the house stayed quiet. That week, the calls kept coming, from schools, banks, even the dance academy. Every time, I explained, the payments were canceled. From now on, Riley and Max's expenses would need to be paid by their parents. No exceptions. By Thursday, Lauren's tone had changed. Dad, can you at least cover this month's mortgage while Brent looks for extra work? Just one more time, for the kids? I closed my eyes, remembering every check I'd written, every trip I'd postponed. No, Lauren. I can't. I'm sorry, honey. You'll have to find a way. She hung up, and I could feel her heart break through the silence. That night, for the first time in years, I slept deeply. The air in my house felt clean, unburdened by secrets or guilt. Outside, spring rain tapped gently on the windows, a new beginning, washing away what needed to be left behind. Friday morning, the first sign things were truly different came from beyond my family. My neighbor, old Mr. McKinley, stopped by as I was watering the azaleas. He leaned on his cane and gave me a look full of concern and a little gossip. Heard Lauren started working over at the grocery store on Main, he said, voice low. People talk, Jack. Everything all right over there? I just smiled, but the truth hung in the air between us. Everything's fine, Sam. Kids just learning how to stand on their own for once. He nodded, then clapped me on the shoulder. About time, I'd say. Word travels fast in small southern towns. By the weekend, the Sullivan family drama was the quiet topic at every coffee shop and church bake sale in Willowbrook and beyond. I ran into Mrs. Baker at the library. She shook her head, her tone both nosy and sympathetic. Jack, folks are saying you cut off your own daughter. That can't be true, can it? I met her gaze steadily. 15 years, nearly $1 million. I think it's time they learn how to live on what they earn. By Sunday, even my pastor had heard the story. After the service, he pulled me aside. Jack, you've always been generous with your family. You did the right thing. Sometimes tough love is the best kind. But not everyone saw it that way. Lauren called again, her voice raw from crying. Dad, Riley's been asking why she can't go to dance class. Max heard a rumor at school that we're losing the house. Kids can be cruel, Dad. I never wanted this for them. I listened, my heart aching. Lauren, I know this is hard. But you can't keep up a lifestyle on someone else's money forever. It's not healthy, for you or the kids. She sniffed. Brent's furious. He says you've ruined our reputation. He blames you for everything. I'm just so tired, Dad. I wanted to hug her, to tell her everything would be all right. But I also knew that the only way forward was through the fire. I'm still here for Riley and Max, always. But you and Brent need to figure out your life together. You're stronger than you think, Lauren. That afternoon, Brent's anger reached a new level. He left a voicemail, words slurred, maybe from a drink or two. You think you're so righteous, Jack? Everyone knows you abandoned your family. People are talking. You'll be the one left alone in that house, and you'll regret it. I deleted the message and went for a walk. The spring air was fresh and full of possibility. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a failure or a doormat. I felt free. On Monday, I ran into Riley outside the school. She ran up and hugged me tight. Grandpa, why can't I go to dance anymore? Mommy cries every night. Daddy just gets angry and yells a lot. Kneeling, I looked her in the eyes. Sweetheart, sometimes grown-ups have to learn important lessons. It doesn't mean they don't love you. Sometimes, loving someone means letting them try things on their own, even if it's hard. She nodded, big blue eyes shining with tears. Will you still come to my recital, Grandpa? Even if I just watch this year? Of course I will, I promised. And next year, I bet you'll be dancing again, because you'll have earned it yourself. That night, Lauren called one more time. This time, her voice was softer. Dad, I had an interview at the local bank. They might take me on as a teller. Brent's looking for part-time work, too. I just wanted you to know. I'm proud of you, honey, I said, tears pricking my own eyes. Really proud. The days passed. The phone calls grew less frantic. Riley and Max visited more often, just for cookies and help with homework. Lauren sounded less desperate, more determined. Even Brent, when he called, spoke quietly, almost respectfully. By Friday, Lauren had news. "I got the job, Dad. Full-time, with benefits. We're selling the BMW and looking for a smaller house. It's scary, but maybe it's time." I smiled into the phone. "It is time. And you're going to be just fine." Sometimes. The hardest storms are the ones that clear the air. As spring turned to summer, my family was still standing, maybe on shakier ground, but standing just the same. And for the first time in a long time, I could watch them without the weight of the world on my back. Summer in Charleston turned hot and bright, the kind of southern heat that sticks to your skin and makes every small victory feel hard-won. It was the season of yard sales, moving trucks, and learning humility the hard way. Lauren sold the BMW first, watching it leave the driveway with a strange mix of sadness and relief. Brent grumbled about downgrading to a used Honda, but I noticed he didn't complain when the insurance and monthly payments shrank. Riley asked if she could decorate the back seat with her own stickers, and Max called it their adventure car. They'd put the house in Willowbrook on the market. It was bittersweet for Lauren. She'd poured years into those rooms, choosing paint colors and building memories. But she admitted to me one quiet evening, as we sipped sweet tea on my porch, "Dad, I think I held on to that house more for what I wanted it to mean, not what it really was." Brent found part-time work at a car dealership, nothing glamorous, just answering phones and moving vehicles around the lot. He came home tired, but the pride in his voice when he got his first paycheck was something new. He even brought donuts over one Sunday, a peace offering I hadn't expected. Riley's dance lessons became a rare treat, not an assumption. She started mowing lawns with Max for neighbors, saving her own money for classes. Lauren baked cookies to sell at the local farmers market, and for the first time in years, the kids argued about who would help Mom instead of who would get what new toy. The move to a smaller house was rough but necessary. The new place had peeling paint and a tiny backyard, but it also had hope. Lauren painted the kitchen herself, with Riley and Max splattering blue on the ceiling. Brent fixed up the bathroom, watching DIY videos late into the night. They called it Team Sullivan. One Saturday, as I helped haul boxes from the truck, Lauren handed me a note. It was an apology, handwritten honest. She thanked me for 15 years of help, for always being there, and for letting go when it was time. The words stung and healed at the same time. That weekend, we sat on the porch of their new home, sipping lemonade. The grandkids ran in the yard, chasing fireflies. Lauren rested her head on my shoulder. "Dad, you know, I was angry at you. Really angry. I thought you abandoned us. But now, I get it. I think you saved us from ourselves." I squeezed her hand. "We all need a push sometimes. And I needed to remember I'm allowed to live my own life, too." Even Brent softened. He started calling me for advice about cars, about negotiating a better salary, about how to fix a leaky faucet. There was still pride in his voice, but now it was the pride of a man building something, not just inheriting it. By July, Riley and Max had started their own neighborhood, kid business, walking dogs, pulling weeds, even helping old Mrs. Carmichael set up her computer. They came over every Saturday to tell me how much they'd earned, faces glowing. "Grandpa, guess what?" Max shouted one morning. "We made enough for Riley's next dance class and still had money for ice cream." I laughed, happier than I'd been in years. That's the Sullivan spirit. Hard work, honest reward. The community noticed, too. Neighbors who'd once whispered about our family drama now stopped me at the store to say, "Jack, your grandkids are polite, helpful. Lauren's cookies are the best thing at the market." Even the old gossips at church found new things to talk about, like how Lauren and Brent volunteered at the summer festival, or how Riley won a blue ribbon at the county fair for her lemonade stand. The pain of the past months hadn't disappeared, but it was softer now, woven into new memories and lessons learned. Lauren and Brent still struggled sometimes, but they struggled together. And that made all the difference. One night, as the cicadas sang outside my window, I found Martha's old photo album on the shelf. I flipped through pages of birthdays, graduations, and Sunday picnics, feeling her presence in every picture. She would have been proud, not just of the money spent, but of the growth, the hard-won respect, the return of gratitude. As August approached, I realized I'd been given a second chance, not only to enjoy my retirement, but to see my family rebuild itself, brick by brick, the right way. August brought fresh challenges. The summer heat beat down, and with it came new bills and the hard reality of living without a safety net. Lauren confessed over the phone one evening, "Dad, some nights I lie awake worrying if we'll make rent or pay the electric. But then I remember you always said, take care of what you have, and what you need will follow. I'm trying." The kids started public school that fall. For the first time, Max and Riley wore hand-me-downs. Riley was shy about her old shoes until I told her how my first sneakers had belonged to my older brother. Max grumbled about carrying his lunch, but soon found he liked Mom's homemade sandwiches more than cafeteria pizza. There were moments of shame, yes, but also discovery. Max joined the school's free soccer league, Riley made new friends in art class, and both came home eager to share their day. Money was tight. Brent's hours at the dealership were unpredictable. Lauren's job at the bank paid less than she dreamed, but she clung to it for the insurance and the sense of purpose it gave her. The big family dinners and restaurant outings disappeared, replaced by backyard cookouts and simple meals around their small kitchen table. What surprised me most was how these limits brought them closer. Instead of ordering takeout, they made pizza from scratch, Max kneading dough, Riley choosing toppings, Brent manning the oven. They laughed more now, even as they counted every dollar. Lauren said, "We've had more real conversations in this little kitchen than we ever did in that big Willowbrook house." The kids brought their own sunshine. One Saturday, they organized a good deed day, knocking on doors to rake leaves, run errands, or just say hello to lonely neighbors. They collected enough in tips to buy Riley new dance shoes, and insisted on paying with their own money. When Riley handed me her old pair, she grinned. "I want to keep these forever, Grandpa. They remind me how hard I worked." I saw Brent change, too. Gone was the swagger, the sense of entitlement. One evening he stopped by my house, hat in hand, and sat on the porch swing beside me. "Jack," he said, his voice quiet, "I need to say something. I was wrong. About a lot of things. About you, about what it means to be a provider. I thought money and image made a man. Turns out, it's showing up when your family needs you, even if you're tired and scared." I clapped him on the back, pride warming my heart. "Took you a while, son. But you got there." The apology wasn't just words. He started volunteering as a youth soccer coach, without pay. He fixed Mrs. Carmichael's leaky roof, mowed lawns for neighbors in need, and even joined Lauren at the food bank. One Saturday, he brought over a plate of barbecue, laughing. "Don't worry, Jack, I didn't burn it this time." Lauren's sense of purpose blossomed. She organized a community bake sale, raising money for school supplies. When one of her coworkers at the bank lost her apartment, Lauren rallied friends to help her find a place. She even managed to save enough for a surprise: tickets for Riley and Max to the local science museum. The change didn't go unnoticed. At church, Mrs. Baker squeezed my hand and whispered, "You did right by them, Jack. Sometimes the hardest lessons bring the greatest blessings." I nodded, humbled and grateful. Yet there were still hard days. One Thursday, Lauren called in tears. "Dad, the car broke down. Brent's paycheck was late. I feel like I'm failing all over again." I listened, let her vent. Then I reminded her gently, "It's okay to struggle. You're not alone. And you're not failing, you're growing. She sniffled, managing a weak laugh. I keep telling the kids one step at a time. Maybe I should listen to myself. By late September, a new sense of normal had settled in. Riley won an award for her painting at the school art show. Max scored his first goal in soccer and raced up to me, beaming. Grandpa, did you see? I did it myself. I hugged him, feeling Martha's presence in that proud, shining moment. I'm so proud of you, buddy. That's what happens when you work for something. Family dinners were smaller, but filled with real gratitude. Lauren always asked me to stay for dessert, saying, "The kids love having you here." So do I. Sometimes, Brent would join me on the porch after, talking about plans for a better job, a side business, a future that was finally theirs to shape. The autumn wind carried away the last bitterness of the old ways. My house felt lighter. My heart did, too. As the leaves turned gold and the air cooled, I realized our story wasn't about losing comfort. It was about gaining resilience, and finding joy in what we built with our own hands, together. By October, Charleston's air carried a hint of wood smoke, and the first cold snap brought people closer together. Inside Lauren's smaller house, things were still tight, but there was a newfound peace. They were living on less, yes, but for the first time, their family felt like a team, not a sinking ship. One evening, Lauren surprised me with a request. Dad, I've been thinking about what you said. That gratitude matters more than pride. I want people to know how much you've done for us. Not just for appearances, but because I owe you the truth. The next Sunday, Lauren stood in front of the congregation at church. Her hands trembled, but her voice was clear. For years, my family lived beyond our means because my father made sacrifices, quietly, without asking for thanks. When he finally said enough, I was angry. But I learned that his love wasn't about money, but about letting us stand on our own. Dad, thank you for never giving up on us, even when we made it hard. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. I felt a wave of embarrassment, and then an overwhelming sense of relief. My story, our story, was out in the open. The old shame melted away. The gratitude didn't end at the church doors. Lauren wrote a letter to the editor of the local paper, describing how my support kept the family afloat, and how her journey back to self-reliance was the greatest gift I'd ever given. Brent apologized to neighbors for the rumors he'd started. He admitted, I let my pride get in the way. I owe Jack, and this whole community, more than I can say. The change was visible. Friends stopped me at the store, shaking my hand and saying, Took guts, Jack. You raised them right. I felt prouder than I had in decades. Riley and Max, seeing their parents humbled and honest, began to understand that love isn't measured in presents or fancy vacations. They talked more about what they were learning than what they wanted for Christmas. Riley even used her own allowance to buy art supplies for a classmate who couldn't afford them. Lauren found time to volunteer at the children's school, helping organize book fairs and coach after-school programs. Brent kept coaching soccer and started taking night classes online, hoping for a promotion at the dealership. One Saturday, after a long day of chores, Lauren and Brent invited me to dinner. The food was simple: spaghetti, homemade garlic bread, a pie Lauren baked herself. After dinner, Lauren raised a glass of sweet tea. To Dad, who taught us what it means to be a family, not just through his wallet, but through his courage to say no. And to all of us, for learning, finally, how to stand together. Everyone toasted, even the kids. I blinked away tears. That evening, Brent pulled me aside on the porch. Jack, I have to admit, I never saw things clearly until now. I was angry for all the wrong reasons. But I see now that you gave us a second chance. If it's not too late, I want to be the kind of son-in-law, and the kind of father, who earns your respect. I looked him in the eye. Brent, respect isn't something I give out like a check. You earn it. And you're on your way. From that night, the mood in the family changed for good. There were still hard days, bills to pay, job interviews that went nowhere, and the occasional setback. But they faced them head on, together. Halloween came. Lauren sewed costumes for Riley and Max. Instead of buying new decorations, they made paper ghosts and jack-o'-lanterns. Their laughter echoed through the tiny house. I stood on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching my grandkids run up and down the block, collecting candy, their faces alight with joy. Later that night, as the house quieted down and the candy was sorted into little piles on the kitchen table, Lauren hugged me. "I hope Mom's watching," she whispered. "I hope she knows we finally listened." I squeezed her tight. "She's always watching, sweetheart. And she'd be proud." Fall faded into early winter. Lauren's bank job became steadier. Brent was offered a full-time sales role, his first real chance at advancement. Riley and Max flourished, at school, at home, in their new lives built on honesty and hard work. At Thanksgiving, we gathered around the small kitchen table, holding hands as Lauren said grace. She gave thanks for simple things, a roof, a meal, the lessons of the year. And for me, her father, who had finally learned to let go. That night, as I drove home through quiet Charleston streets, I realized something I'd almost forgotten. Family isn't about what you can give, but what you can help them discover within themselves. Winter came early to Charleston, dusting the city with frost and sharpening the nights. In their new, small home, Lauren and Brent prepared for Christmas with what they could afford: handmade ornaments, second-hand lights, and a tiny tree Riley insisted on decorating herself. The old days of big spending and expectation were gone, replaced by something simpler and somehow more joyful. Lauren found herself humming carols while baking cookies with the kids, even as she kept one eye on the budget. Brent, who used to dismiss little things as unimportant, helped Max build a sled out of scrap wood. Riley spent her afternoons making Christmas cards, writing notes to friends and neighbors. "Thank you for being kind. Happy holidays from the Sullivan family." She delivered them door to door, her mittens covered in glitter and glue. For the first time in years, my own home was full of laughter again. Lauren brought the kids over on weekends to help hang lights on my porch. Brent showed up, too, never empty-handed, always offering to shovel snow or help with odd jobs. One chilly Saturday, he handed me a mug of hot chocolate, looked me in the eye, and said, "Jack, thank you for not bailing us out this year. We needed to learn what we could really do." There were still setbacks, of course. Money was tight after Lauren had to miss work for a week with the flu. Max's new soccer cleats fell apart, and Riley chipped a tooth on a popcorn ball. But instead of panicking or calling me for help, Lauren and Brent sat down together and made a plan. They called the dentist, found a payment plan, and Riley proudly told her friends, "My family fixed it ourselves." Christmas morning arrived cold and bright. The presents under the tree were small: books, handmade scarves, art supplies, a soccer ball bought on sale. But the excitement was just as big as any grand holiday in the old house. Riley squealed over a sketchbook. Max hugged his new ball like it was a trophy. After lunch, they all came to my place for dessert. Lauren brought a pie, Brent brought his newfound humility, and the kids brought enough stories to fill the whole afternoon. We sat by the fire, trading memories and hopes for the year ahead. At one point, Lauren turned to me. "Dad, I want to ask your opinion. There's a job opening at the credit union, more hours, a little more money. But I'd have to juggle more, less time for the kids. What do you think?" I looked at her, saw the strength and uncertainty mingling in her eyes, and smiled. "Honey, you know what matters most to you now. You'll make the right call, because it's your life. I'm proud of you no matter what you choose." Later, Brent asked if I'd come to one of his soccer practices. He was coaching Max's team in a local league. "It'd mean a lot to the boys, Jack. And to me." Standing on the sidelines that chilly afternoon, watching Max run and Brent cheer from the other end, I realized what I'd always hoped for had finally happened. They were building a life together, not just surviving on mine. The new year brought more milestones. Riley's painting was selected for a student show at the city library. Max was voted most improved player on his team. Lauren got the job at the credit union and, after a family meeting, took it, deciding as a family how to make it work. And for the first time in more than a decade, I planned a trip for myself. A week in the mountains with old friends, fishing and hiking, no phone calls about overdue payments or emergencies. Lauren hugged me goodbye, whispering, "Go, Dad. You've earned this." Even as winter melted into spring, and the world around us came alive with hope, I found myself thinking more about Martha. I'd kept my promise to her, but I'd also found the strength to let our daughter grow. That was the legacy we'd wanted, not a legacy of money, but of resilience and love. The lessons of the last year became our new family stories, told at every gathering. We laughed about the tiny house, the burnt dinners, the odd jobs, the hand-me-downs. We talked about how scary it was to let go of old habits and stand on your own 2 feet. But most of all, we celebrated how saying no could sometimes be the greatest gift you can give those you love. As the azaleas bloomed and Lauren's laughter filled my porch again, I realized we'd lost none of the important things. In fact, we'd finally learned how to hold on to what mattered most. Spring in Charleston came like forgiveness, soft, warm, and gentle. Azaleas bloomed in pink and white across every yard, and laughter drifted through open windows. My own house, once so quiet and full of echoes, was now alive most weekends with Riley's giggles and Max's latest adventures. Lauren dropped by for coffee, not because she needed help, but simply because she wanted to see her dad. Looking back, I realized just how far we'd all come. A year ago, I was haunted by guilt, afraid that by saying no, I'd pushed my daughter away forever. But the opposite happened. Letting go had brought us closer. I could see it in the way Lauren talked about her job at the credit union, or how Brent beamed after a long day at the dealership, proud of the work he'd done on his own. The kids blossomed. Riley's paintings covered her bedroom wall, and when I visited, she'd proudly show me each new one. "Grandpa, I sold one to Mrs. Carmichael for $5. She'd exclaim, eyes wide with joy. Max took up running, and he dragged Brent outside to practice sprints, sometimes with the whole family cheering from the porch. The old wounds had faded. When Lauren's birthday came, she invited me, Brent, and the kids over for a simple dinner, homemade lasagna, a store-bought cake, laughter that made the little house ring. At the table, Lauren raised her glass. "To Dad, for teaching us that real love isn't about money, but about letting go so we could finally grow up." Brent nodded, a different man from the one who'd once called me a loser. "You didn't just save us, Jack, you made us better. I hope I can do the same for my kids someday." Even neighbors noticed. People who'd whispered about our family's troubles now stopped me on the street to say, "Jack, your grandkids are the politest kids in town. You must be proud." And I was, prouder than any number in a bank account could make me. As spring turned to summer, Riley and Max planned their own lemonade stand. This time, instead of asking me for money for supplies, they used their allowance, worked together, and split the earnings. They made just enough to buy tickets for the town carnival, and when I drove them there, they insisted on buying my entry ticket too. "It's your turn to relax, Grandpa." Riley grinned. At the carnival, we rode the Ferris wheel. The sun was setting over the city, bathing everything in gold. As we reached the top, Max said, "Are you happy, Grandpa?" And I realized, truly and deeply, that I was. I'd kept my promise to Martha, but I'd done more than that. I'd taught my family that love is not measured in dollars, but in time, effort, and sometimes in the courage to let go. I'd learned that letting your children struggle is sometimes the greatest kindness, because it gives them a chance to become strong. Lauren's family thrived. There were still hard days, bills to pay, cars to fix, dreams to adjust. But they faced those days together, with honesty and gratitude. Holidays were smaller, but filled with meaning. Birthdays meant homemade cards and silly games. Evenings were for family stories, not for worries about what they couldn't afford. One warm Saturday in June, we all gathered in my backyard for a picnic. The food was simple: sandwiches, sweet tea, watermelon. Riley painted everyone's faces with flowers and stars, Max organized a backyard soccer game, and Brent grilled hot dogs with the confidence of a man who had earned his peace. When the sun started to set, Lauren brought out an old photo album. We sat on the porch, paging through pictures of birthdays, lost teeth, soccer games, and holidays long gone. I saw the story of our family, the ups, the downs, the seasons of plenty and of want. There was sadness, yes, but so much more joy. At the end of the album, Lauren had added new pages: Riley's art show, Max's first soccer trophy, Brent's certificate from night school, Lauren's Bank Employee of the Month award. And right there in the middle, a photo of all of us, laughing together on the porch. Lauren squeezed my hand. "We're okay, Dad. More than okay. I want you to know we never could have done this without you, without all of you, even your tough love." I felt tears sting my eyes, but I didn't hide them. "I'm proud of you, Lauren. Of all of you." That evening, as fireflies blinked across the yard and the voices of my family drifted through the warm air, I thought about what it meant to be a parent and a grandparent. It wasn't just about sacrifice. It was about teaching, about boundaries, about believing that the people you love can, and should, stand on their own 2 feet. In the end, the real story wasn't about losing or winning, but about becoming a family built on truth, on gratitude, and on real love. The world outside was changing, always would be, but inside our little circle, we had something lasting. Something money could never buy. And that, I realized, was the best ending I could ever wish for.